The Second World War had finally ended. Across Europe, church bells rang, crowds celebrated in the streets, and millions dreamed of rebuilding their lives. But in Belgium, the end of the war did not bring immediate peace. Instead, it unleashed a different kind of battle, one fought not against invading armies, but against neighbors, friends, and even family members accused of helping the Nazis. When the German occupation collapsed in September 1944, one question echoed across the country: what should be done with those who had collaborated with Hitler? The answer would become one of the largest and most controversial post-war justice campaigns in Western Europe. Hundreds of thousands of investigations were opened, tens of thousands were imprisoned, thousands received death sentences, and the nation would spend decades debating whether justice had truly been served, or whether revenge had gone too far. This is the story of Belgium's final reckoning with Nazi collaboration. To understand what happened after liberation, we first need to go back to May 10, 1940. In the early hours of that morning, Nazi Germany invaded Belgium as part of its massive offensive against Western Europe. The Belgian army fought fiercely, but within just 18 days, King Leopold III surrendered. The country fell under German military occupation, beginning 4 long years of control by the Third Reich. Life under occupation was harsh and uncertain. Food shortages became common. Freedom of speech disappeared. Jewish families were forced to register, wear identification, and eventually faced deportation to concentration camps. Resistance groups emerged across the country, risking everything to sabotage German operations and protect those being hunted. But not everyone resisted. Some Belgians chose to cooperate with the occupiers. Their reasons varied dramatically. Some genuinely believed Nazi Germany would create a new political order in Europe. Others were driven by anti-communism. Some hoped collaboration would protect their families or businesses. Others simply sought money, power, or personal advantage. Political movements such as the Flemish National Union, known as VNV, and the Reich Party openly supported the German occupation. One of the most infamous collaborators was Léon Degrelle, leader of the Reich Party. A charismatic politician before the war, Degrelle became an enthusiastic supporter of Adolf Hitler. He eventually volunteered to fight alongside the Waffen-SS on the Eastern Front, earning praise directly from Hitler himself. Military collaboration also expanded during the occupation. Thousands of Belgian volunteers joined German military formations, including the Waffen-SS, believing they were fighting against Soviet communism or serving what they considered a greater European cause. Economic collaboration became another important part of the occupation. Factory owners, industrialists, contractors, and businessmen continued producing goods and services for the German war effort. Some argued they had no choice if they wanted to keep their companies alive. Others clearly profited from German contracts. Perhaps the most feared collaborators were informers. These individuals supplied information to the Gestapo, identifying resistance fighters, political opponents, and Jewish families hiding from deportation. Their actions often led directly to arrests, torture, imprisonment, and death. As the years passed, resentment grew. Belgian resistance networks became stronger. Allied bombing campaigns intensified. By the summer of 1944, Nazi Germany was beginning to collapse. Then came September. Following the Allied landings in Normandy and their rapid advance across France, British, American, Canadian, and other Allied forces entered Belgium. Cities were liberated one after another. Crowds welcomed soldiers with flowers, flags, and celebrations. But behind the celebrations, something darker was unfolding. The moment German authority disappeared, public anger exploded. For years, many Belgians had watched collaborators operate openly while resistance members risked execution. Now, ordinary citizens wanted justice immediately. Across the country, suspected collaborators were arrested by resistance groups or angry civilians. Some were beaten in the streets. Others had their homes attacked. Women accused of maintaining relationships with German soldiers were publicly humiliated, with their heads shaved before large crowds. Not everyone targeted was actually guilty. In the emotional chaos following liberation, accusations spread quickly. Personal grudges, political rivalries, and false rumors sometimes resulted in innocent people being arrested or attacked. Belgium now faced a serious challenge. If justice remained in the hands of angry crowds, the country risked descending into widespread violence.
The government understood that revenge alone could never rebuild a democratic society. Formal legal action had to replace mob justice. Even before Belgium had been fully liberated, the Belgian government in exile in London had anticipated this problem. Plans had already been prepared to prosecute collaboration through military courts once the country was free. These special military tribunals became responsible for investigating collaboration with the German occupation. The scale of the operation was extraordinary. Authorities opened investigations involving roughly 400,000 people. Approximately 70,000 individuals were temporarily detained. Military prosecutors reviewed enormous quantities of evidence, witness testimony, government records, and wartime documents. Not every investigation resulted in prosecution. Many cases were eventually dismissed because evidence proved insufficient. Others involved people whose actions had been minor or whose cooperation had been forced by circumstances beyond their control. Still, around 54,000 people were ultimately convicted of collaboration-related offenses. The punishments varied significantly. Some received only short prison sentences. Others lost their voting rights, government jobs, or professional licenses. Teachers, lawyers, civil servants, journalists, and business leaders could be permanently removed from their professions. For many, these civil penalties became lifelong consequences, even after prison sentences ended. The most serious cases involved individuals accused of directly assisting the German occupation through military service, informing on resistance members, participating in persecution, or committing acts of violence. For these defendants, prosecutors demanded the harshest possible punishment. Military courts issued approximately 2,940 death sentences. At first glance, that number seems astonishing. But it requires important context. Many of these death sentences were handed down in absentia, meaning the accused had already fled Belgium before they could be arrested. Others later had their sentences reduced through appeals or royal clemency. In reality, 242 executions were ultimately carried out between November 1944 and August 1950. Nearly all were executed by firing squad. Among them were 237 Belgian citizens, including 4 women. These executions marked the final use of capital punishment for wartime collaboration in Belgian history. Yet perhaps the most famous collaborator never faced Belgian justice. Léon Degrelle escaped during the final days of the war. After Germany's defeat, he fled to Spain, where General Francisco Franco granted him protection. Belgium sentenced Degrelle to death in absentia and repeatedly requested his extradition. Spain consistently refused. Degrelle remained there for the rest of his life, openly defending his wartime actions and expressing admiration for Hitler until his death in 1994. His escape became one of the most painful symbols of unfinished justice for many Belgians. Not every collaboration case, however, was so straightforward. In eastern Belgium, the situation became especially complicated. This region had been annexed by Nazi Germany during the war. Many local residents were automatically treated as German citizens. Thousands of young men were forcibly drafted into the German armed forces. After liberation, many returned home wearing German uniforms. Were they collaborators? Or victims of forced conscription? Belgian authorities struggled to answer these questions fairly. Some individuals faced prosecution despite claiming they had never voluntarily served Germany. Historians continue debating how many were punished despite having little real choice. These difficult cases demonstrated that collaboration existed on a spectrum. Some willingly embraced Nazi ideology. Others simply tried to survive under occupation. Drawing a clear line between guilt and necessity was often impossible. The political consequences of the post-war purge also lasted for decades. Belgium itself was divided by language, culture, and regional politics. Some Flemish nationalist groups argued that the repression disproportionately targeted Flemish collaborators while overlooking similar actions elsewhere. Others insisted the courts had been too lenient, allowing many serious offenders to escape adequate punishment. Public memory became increasingly divided. For some families, relatives had been heroes of the resistance. For others, relatives carried the lifelong stigma of collaboration. Many avoided discussing the war entirely. Children grew up knowing little about what their parents or grandparents had done between 1940 and 1944. As decades passed, historians gained access to archives, military records, and court documents. Their research painted a more complex picture than either side had originally believed. Some collaborators were deeply committed Nazis who willingly participated in persecution and violence. Others made morally questionable choices under extraordinary pressure. Some resisted in private while appearing cooperative in public. Others switched sides when Germany's defeat became inevitable. History rarely offers simple categories. Today, Belgium's post-war repression remains one of the most extensively studied examples of transitional justice in Europe. The country demonstrated that democracy must respond to betrayal through law rather than endless revenge. Yet Belgium also showed how difficult justice becomes after years of occupation, fear, and violence. Can a society truly punish every guilty person? Can courts fully distinguish between ideology, survival, coercion, and opportunism? Can legal judgments heal wounds created by war? These questions continue to challenge historians, legal scholars, and governments around the world. Belgium's experience reminds us that the end of war is rarely the end of conflict. Sometimes, the hardest battles begin only after the guns fall silent. Because rebuilding a nation requires more than defeating an enemy. It requires deciding how to live again with the people who once helped that enemy. And for Belgium, that final reckoning would shape the country's history